and going back is not an option in the sense of someone that has relationships, professional relationships, schooled in Nigeria, grew up in Nigeria, all of those things. So we're really kind of in a no man's land. And so I look at it as cultural. So like one of the things that I strongly believe is that diaspora, especially diaspora like me, even though my cultural inclination, my understanding is not typical for someone that grew up in Nigeria and stayed for long, but it is still relevant, it is still to be reckoned with, and I actually think that for many of us coming from Africa, it is one of the losses that our home countries have when you have children that are born here who don't necessarily speak their home language, who may not have been who may not have had the opportunity to go to Nigeria or to where they're coming from, but they're developed. And they're developed in ways that they're very impactful here, so how can we be relevant to Nigeria or where we're coming from? So that's something that I work on, from trying to get our mates back home to understand and respect us, and also understand that we're different, but that we have things that we can bring to the table in terms of our professional experience, our passion for.
One of the biggest misunderstandings that I've kind of experienced with my parents is the fact that they grew up obviously in a completely different culture, and grew up around people that looked like them, talked like them. Everything was there was a bit more of a sense of belonging there. But for those of us that were moved here when we were very young, there's a lot of struggle with identity, fitting in, cultures, sometimes bullying. When I first came here, obviously I didn't speak English at all. I only knew French and the local language from Niger. But obviously I quickly learned that language. But the biggest challenge that I faced with my parents was understanding that our ideas of culture, goals, especially career and schooling, were completely different. Were influenced in a completely different way than what they experienced. As I've grown up, I understand that my parents sacrificed a lot so that we could have different opportunities that they didn't have. They pushed a lot onto me to be successful, to do well in school. And I know a lot of my Nigerian friends say they only had 3 career options: be a lawyer, doctor, or engineer. So there's a lot of back and forth when it comes to that, in terms of trying to get our parents to understand that we're trying to be our own people and create our own path. So as I've grown up, my parents and I have had more conversations about that. And
in college right now as we speak, going to her second year. So when it comes to generational issues, I do believe there is a misunderstanding between the parents as we come here, because we have one culture and we tend to keep our culture even in our houses. But we do forget that when our kids get out of the house, they go to the American culture many of the hours out of the 24. I have these kids that I want them to practice the Kenyan culture with me for 2 hours out of the 24 hours I'm with them. Because we meet after work, 8 p.m., dinner table are not necessary nowadays. You eat at your own pace, your own time. So when we meet, I want this girl to behave like a Kenyan for 2 hours. But I'm expecting her 24 hours to be Kenyan. But when she gets out of my house in the morning, she is in the American culture. In school, her social life, her friends, her teachers. And this kid will get mixed up. So that switch alone, from being a Kenyan, I want her to carry Kenyan food when going to school. When she goes over there, like you say, she'll be asked by the friends, what's that? Can I taste it? Can I see what you got? What's that? All that. We don't know our kids are going through challenges. And when they stop carrying food to take to school, they're ignorant. They don't want this no more. They don't want to dress up like this. We fail to understand. We misunderstand them. So the best thing that I've noted is we be our kids' friends more than parents, especially in this country. Because a friend will tell you what's bothering. But when it comes to our kids, when she's bothered by school, by what she had carried, she will come and tell me. Because mama tomorrow will still pack green leaves, cabbages, and ugali for her to carry to school, which did not work out yesterday with the friends, isn't it? But that way, when we make the friendship more stronger than the parenthood, parenting will become easier, especially in this country.
Behaving American, that means they don't like their Kenyan or they don't appreciate their Nigerian. But it's really about learning to be the best you can in whatever environment that you're in. And so the concrete example that I remember from university was, in my culture, you don't call adults or superiors by their first name. You just don't. And I had such a hard time, and then I finally had to be like, okay, you just have to do this. In my chemical engineering department, the professors went by their first name. It wasn't Professor Shakfe, it was Eric. So when you're coming and you're like professor or Mr. or doctor, you kind of look like you don't have confidence, you're not a performer, and then it's like, no, I've got to call Eric by Eric or he's not going to respect me. But at the same time, your parents might be looking like, did you just say the chairperson of your department is Bud? That's what you call him? I said, that's what everybody calls him. If I don't call him Bud, I look like I don't know anything compared to the others. Like we're not on the same.
We talk about it as if you can only be one or the other, that you're either the parent or the friend, and that you can't be both. You're always a parent, and you are always a friend. And when you parent from a place of friendship with your child, parenting becomes so much easier. We'll not agree many times. There'll be many times we disagree, and that's okay. But you don't win by bulldozing your way through parenting. We have to learn to listen. We have to listen to our children. Cultivate a friendship with them so that when something is happening, you're gonna be one of the first to know. I don't wanna hear things about my kids from other people because I have not cultivated a relationship with them where they can talk to me. So that's one of the things. I'm a mother of girls. I didn't always know this. I was not raised like that. I'm always grumbling to them. It's okay. I'm gonna go to their room. Jan, I noticed tonight you seemed a little off. You seemed upset. Oh, I know you don't want to talk to me, but it's what's on your mind right now. And she'll say, Mom, I don't want to talk about it now. We'll talk tomorrow. See, it's not just okay to be your kid's friend. It's absolutely necessary that you cultivate that friendship with them. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, you have to do this because of this. You're doing it for yourself. So I think parents need to recognize that you're telling your kids, oh, you need to ask your kids, why do you want to do something? Why is this important to you? What are you hoping to get out of it? And just like talking in general. Seeing why the kid wants to do something, why it's important to them, and just hearing them out. Don't shun them. Yes, you do have some knowledge because you've lived longer than us, but we are also growing. And we don't necessarily have the knowledge that you guys have because you're older than us and you've lived more and experienced more. But we're in a new environment, like one of them said, and we're just like learning from this environment. So that's all I just had to say.
With Down syndrome, and I have a 24-year-old. I try to put myself in his position. I try to put myself in his mind. I try to work with him. I communicate with him because as an adult, I know what I experienced. And even though he was born here, I know he will have the same experience because of who he is. Because they will ask him, where were you born all the time? So I try to put myself in his position. I communicate with him. even though he might say, Mom, you don't understand. And when I say, I do understand, he still says, Mom, you don't understand. And he will come back and say, Mom, yes, you do understand. But it's not the same feeling. That's the way I deal with my kids, or especially this one. The one that has Down syndrome, I go to the school because honestly, the teachers are special needs. They are not special needs teachers. They don't know what they're doing.
Normal people. So for that question, I will say, not only be a parent for your kid, but also be a parent for the community, your church members. A lot of our kids are there, they don't know what to do in their homes. They go to school and they're being bullied. They are in college and they are being bullied. They don't know how to talk to some of us parents because they are afraid of how we're going to see them, what we're going to tell them. They hide their emotions. They don't know what to do. They start misbehaving. But you don't know why. Let's be not only our kids' parents, but only other children's parents. The kid you see at church, ask that kid, how is school? How are you doing? I have little kids, 11, 13 and under, but I tend to be the friends. I have nieces. They talk to me all the time. My church member at church, parents call me just to talk to the kids because they are afraid to talk to their own kid, and that is not fair. We need to be our children's friend. Not only your kid, but other kids too. Because the difference that you're going to make in their life will really help them. You don't know what that kid is going to. They might be smiling because we always judge. Let's stop judging. Let's walking with them, holding their hand and walking with them. We are going to be one community if we walk together. If we listen to them. Just listen. Don't judge. Because they will be afraid. They will be afraid to talk to you. And they will find comfort to a stranger. And you don't want that to happen. And that's it. Thank you so much for having us today.